Hey everybody, welcome to Nerd in the Sun, and today I have something very special. I have my friend Will from the Inspired Geeks Podcast on with me. Will, take it away.
Hey everybody, Chris, thanks for having me on board. I'm excited to be here. And yes, I am the host of the Inspired Geeks Podcast.
Excellent. So today we're just going to talk about a bunch of random stuff, Marvel, video games, all kinds of stuff. It should be a lot of fun. And then you should definitely go and check out Will's podcast. I'm going to link it in the description below. If you enjoy this content, like, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And can't wait to talk about this with you. So let's get started. I found out that New Mutants is coming out on September 10th. That's about the extent of my research.
Oh, New Mutants?
Yeah.
That's out now. It came out today.
My research lied to me.
Yeah.
Is it in theaters?
Yes, it is in theaters. I know I rode past a couple of movie theaters here. They have that playing. It's just everyone's still kind of cautious about going to movie theaters because I'm debating on whether I want to risk getting COVID to see it.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but I think I might risk it. I can't believe that's out. I really want to see that movie, even if it got bad reviews. I'm intrigued by it, mostly because Maisie Williams on it. Let's be real.
Yeah. I heard it is pretty comic book accurate, like from what I've read from the reviews.
Okay.
I do want to see it as well. I don't know. I might take that risk. Maybe go like early Sunday morning, or when nobody's in the movie theater, and kind of have it to myself. And because masks are mandatory here too to go into the movie theaters. I'm like, it might be safe. It might be safe to kind of go check it out. Yeah. But I did watch some reviews, and unfortunately, they ain't that great. They're mixed at best. They're saying it's better than Dark Phoenix, though. It's better than. You did see Dark Phoenix, right?
Yeah, the more recent one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about that one? Did you?
It's right after Days of Future Past. No. It went Apocalypse and then Dark Phoenix, right?
Yeah, it was Apocalypse, then Dark Phoenix. Yep.
Okay. Well, Days of Future Past was by far the best of those four, the new X-Men ones. And I thought Apocalypse kind of actually got boring for me at one point, and I don't get bored for superhero movies that often. And then Dark Phoenix was all over the place, man. The coolest part about that was Magneto, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think I did that was one of my earliest podcast reviews too, last year. And I just I was sitting in the movie theater what in the world? That movie was just a mess. I'm like, how could they not get the Dark Phoenix story right? They've had two chances to do it, and they got it wrong twice. I'm like,
so true, man.
Yeah.
And it's not like this is a new story, even if, yeah, you said it. They've had two chances. They blew it both times, and it wasn't really that new the first time.
Yeah, and the '90s cartoon is still the best when it comes to telling a Dark Phoenix story, in my opinion. So yeah,
I actually missed the cartoon version, so
yeah,
but
it's great. I still watch the '90s X-Men and Spiderman cartoons to this day. They're just still, and the Batman one too. All of them still
Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond and the classic, just Batman, the animated series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I agree, man. Those were so good. They were incredibly well made, especially for the time when it was a little bit more difficult to do animation.
I know you've been playing, but I see you're playing Fall Guys. I just started playing it today too. That's really fun. Yeah.
Dude, that game's addicting. Oh my gosh. And at first, when you don't know what's going on, you so badly want to figure it out. So I want to say I played 4 to 6 hours straight the first time, something like that. So you just started today?
Yeah, today I actually started playing it just because I think I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty just with my friends because that's what they play. Call of Duty's okay to me. It's just that game that I get to play with everybody. And then I've been playing a lot of the Avengers beta, and I've been replaying The Last of Us 2. So those are the games that I've been kind of into. Yeah.
You told me I need to play that, and it is at the very top of my list. Once I'm going to dedicate, like, I didn't expect to play Fall Guys. That just kind of happened, you know? So I'm still on video game hiatus, technically.
Yeah.
But as soon as I start playing video games again, I'm going to do the first one, The Last of Us, the first one, so that I can get the complete storyline, plus the PS4 port of it looked pretty good. And then I cannot wait to play the second one. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, both of them are, phenomenal games. Just like I think I mentioned before, the few games where I felt something like as an actual, person, like, they feel like real people in those games. So it's like, whoa, So yeah.
That's awesome, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
I watched reviews. I watched like a whole hour of reviews after talking to you about it, and it looks amazing. It's not just that it physically looks really nice, but the people and how they move, how realistic it is, their eye motions and like little crinkles around their eyes and stuff. It's really beautiful. And then also from the little bits of the storyline that I could tell, it's just like a really brutal, emotional roller coaster, I guess. Like it just really intense in a good way. And I can't wait to try that. I think I'll be really invested. I usually get invested in these kinds of things.
Yeah. You hear a little chime. We always have Christmas stuff going on around here year round to kind of keep it fresh.
Oh, that's so? That's awesome. Merry Christmas, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but the last was too, like, when you kill enemies, like they all have real like names, and like the other enemies are like say, oh, it was our anniversary today and you killed them. So it's like you feel something when you kill these people. So it's like it's not just random, NPCs. Like it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I just killed this lady or I killed this dog or whatever. So it definitely makes you feel something.
That's brutal. Now you're talking about the actual, well, not real people, but the people NPCs, not the zombie people, right?
Right, yeah, the people NPCs, not the zombies, yeah.
Gotcha, okay. Wow, that sounds super brutal. It's a lot like, what's that show, The Walking Dead, but more visceral, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait, dude. I'm so glad you told me about this.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So, you were telling me that you were playing the Marvel beta. Can you tell me about this? Because I didn't even know this was a thing, and I'm super interested.
Oh yeah, so there is a Avengers game coming out this week. So September 1st is when it launches, and it's it's on the PS4, PC, and Xbox, and it's a third-person action-adventure game, but it's always online, so you have to have internet to play it.
Okay.
If you ever played Destiny or Anthem or The Division, it's sort of like a third-person loop shooter, but it's not actually a shooter.
Right.
If you get to play as, the different characters like Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, Captain America, and each one plays differently, so there's a lot of strategy involved. I like playing as Iron Man because you can fly through the skies and shoot guys, and you can upgrade your armor. The Hulk, he's also fun to play as because you can just steamroll through guys and just smash them. And it's just really fun when you're playing cooperatively with people online. And the storyline is basically set within the Marvel Comics universe, so there's not really anything for people if you've only seen the movies, you'll understand what's going on, but you might be a little bit confused about certain elements and characters that are mentioned, like Aang and MODOK is the main villain in the game. So
the giant head dude with the
yeah. So it's like, if you played the Spiderman PS4 game, it's like that, but it's like an online multiplayer game as well. So it's really fun.
That's cool. And so what are the multiplayer aspects of it? What do you do when you're playing multiplayer? Just
So when you're oh yeah, so when you're playing multiplayer, it's sort of like you're set up with like a story mission. So like Jarvis will tell you, hey, in Utah, AIM is attacking this base. So you and your friends will pick your hero. So somebody can be Iron Man or Captain America or Hulk or Black Widow,
okay.
and you all go to this point, like defend this base from these waves of enemies, and you fight them. But it sounds repetitive, but it's not, just because of the combat and the way that you can customize your characters. So like if you want to play Iron Man as a support character, you can, or if you want to use him as a combat character where he's like going in for the close combat and Captain America is playing like support, you can do that. So it's just a ton of customization and like healer and tank roles, like RPG type stuff.
That's very cool sounding.
Yeah.
So there's no like PvP where you're Iron Man and your homie is Captain America and you duke it out like the end of Civil War.
No, well, I don't think Square Enix. They say they might, but they said they're gonna add a lot of cool story elements to it. Like it's gonna be a game they're gonna add content to for years to come. Is what they're saying. So, for example, they plan to add Spider-Man post launch for free. So, but only for the PS4 though. So sorry
Yeah.
if you have an Xbox or a PC.
I'm a PS4 dude. I actually got an Xbox too and a Switch. But,
Me too. I
yeah,
do
you got
have a
all three
Switch
of
as
them?
well. Yeah, I got a Switch as well. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Did you ever play in March? What can I think of it? The game with Tom Nook.
Later that same evening.
Animal Crossing. Wow.
Oh, right,
Wow.
right.
Wow. That took so much
Oh
effort.
yeah, the game that everybody played during quarantine. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. I played that game until I could no longer play it.
yeah. Me too. It was one of those things where like everybody I knew during quarantine, like you got to switch. Okay, Animal Crossing. I'm like, cool. That and Mario Kart was like the two games I
Oh,
played.
for sure.
Yeah.
It was really cool at the very beginning of quarantine when people were still getting used to everything basically, and you could go and visit your friends' islands, and it was kind of
hmm
like hanging out with them. I really enjoyed that part of it. That was the best part.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed that, and I think Animal Crossing made the switch hard to find in stores, because I know around here in Virginia, you could not Target, Walmart, Best Buys, all sold out. You could not find switches, for like a couple of months.
It was exactly the same here. Yeah, that was so crazy. I had a friend go to a different state to find one
Mhm.
for him and his girlfriend. Two. He bought one for him and his girlfriend because they really wanted to play, and then they got over it in like one day. That was so crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was quite the phenomenon, man, to sell out everywhere. Oh my gosh. I recently had a similar experience with that, but for a totally different thing. I was looking for the like PlayStation camera so that I could stream,
hmm
and only one store in San Diego had it. We looked at Best Buy, Target, Fry's Electronics. I don't know if they have that out where you are, but
Yeah.
another electronics place, GameStop, and we ended up finding one in, I think it was a Target 45 minutes from my house, up in a place called Oceanside. And we drove up there, and lo and behold, it was sold out. They didn't actually have it. They just said that they did. So we upgraded and we got the entire PlayStation VR. Me and my girlfriend both pitched on it and got the VR thing because it came with the camera. And so we got the like Iron Man VR that came with it. And
hmm
dude, that is so sick. It's so fun to fly around like you're Iron Man, but it kind of actually feels like you're flying. There were a few times where I almost fell when I would like let go of the flying thing and I'd sink back down to the ground. I was like, whoa, this really feels like I'm flying.
Yeah.
That's so cool. But yeah, I don't know what the deal was with the PlayStation camera. It's sold out. Like, is everybody streaming now? I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people are screaming, and like what we're doing, a lot of people started to do podcasts and YouTube channels just to kind of pass the time, and I guess hopefully, I guess they're trying to make money from it too. Eventually, I think that's the goal for everybody.
Right.
But because I couldn't find one either. I couldn't find the camera. I still can't to this day. So yeah.
Really, that's a trip. It really must be every single person who's trying to stream. I'm glad that you and me are able sort of found a different avenue, because streaming seems like a tough game to try and play. There are so many people who want to get paid to play video games.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who doesn't, to be honest.
That's true. Because here, well, I'm pretty sure everywhere, but the college that I work at here in Virginia, Old Dominion, is starting an esports team. So now kids can go to college to be a professional video gamer.
No way. That's mind blowing.
Yeah, they have a whole computer lab set up with PCs and Xboxes, and they're offering up scholarships. And I'm like, where was this when I was going to college?
Right. Oh man, I wish. Is it kind of the same as going to school for a different sport, for a real sport? Can someone get a scholarship to go to school but play esports?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as if they were a basketball player or a football player. They're treated as athletes, but they're gamers.
They got the fastest boats in the West.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool though, because they do keep track of their grades. They make sure they stay physically fit, as well, as real athletes. So that's really cool. So, but it's all gamers though still.
That's amazing. I had not heard about that. I'm super glad you told me. This actually kind of melts my mind a little bit. I cannot believe this is where we're at now. 2020, people getting scholarships to college to play video games.
Yeah, it's.
Where was this when we were in college? Just like you said.
I know. It's insane. But I do try to watch it, because I know I used to watch G4, which, ironically, not to get off track, that's coming back next year.
Oh, okay. What's G4? I never watched that.
It was a show on cable that was primarily focused on gaming and comic book stuff. They actually were always at San Diego Comic-Con every single year back in the day.
Oh, no kidding. Gosh, I can't believe I haven't heard of them.
Yeah. So they used to have shows like not G4, but the station was called G4, but the shows were X-Play and Attack of the Show.
I've heard of Attack of the Show. I heard about that one. Okay, cool. And so that's coming back. They're going to start doing that again. Probably because there's just so many more nerds these days than there used to be. All that stuff is worth mad money to whoever can produce them.
Absolutely. And that just ties back to how popular, esports is. I think, G4 played a huge role in that. And of course, the platform on YouTube itself.
It's so weird how entertaining it is to watch someone else play video games on streaming. I get it. I had never really given it much thought before, about a year ago, but I find myself occasionally getting on the PS4, and instead of actually playing the game myself, I go and watch someone else play Final Fantasy VII Remake, because they say something that makes me laugh, right when I will start watching them. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I kind of feel like I'm in this guy's living room or this girl's living room, and we're just playing a game together.
It is good. Yeah. I agree with you there. Now that, I got a little bit older, and it's harder for me to kind of squeeze that gaming time in, I do find myself going to YouTube and watching somebody else play just for the fun of it, really.
Yeah, you kind of get the same feeling as when you're playing. At least I find I do. I don't know what to call that, but it's like the gaming feeling. Okay, I got my gaming in for today. And I didn't. You just let someone else get their gaming in. New Mutants. We talked about that already.
I'm really hyped for it because I read the New Mutants comic book a while back, the original one from 1982. So that's something that I've been doing, collecting old comic books during quarantine and kind of just building my collection up. And I ran across the New Mutants, so that was cool.
So you've really been reading a lot of comic books during quarantine, huh?
Yeah, I have more than I like to admit. Like, if I showed you guys my collection, I'd kind of be not embarrassed, but like, Will, what are you doing?
I gotcha. That's awesome though, man. I'm like ADHD and I can't sit down for too long, and for whatever reason it even translates into comics. I need to be interacting with things, and so I wish I could, man, a little bit more than I can, because there's so many books and so many comics that I want to read, and then I like open something up and I'm like, I'm hungry. I should go make food. Oh, good old ADHD.
Yeah.
So what's the coolest thing that you've read recently?
I have gotten caught up on some of, like you, I get a little bit distracted and squirrel brains too. So I tried to finish up one of the Batman comics that I had been putting off forever, and that was the Batman Who Laughs, like that whole saga. And man, that Batman is pretty scary. It's like a combination of like Bruce Wayne and the Joker. And that comic book gets really, really dark. Like if you've ever read The Killing Joke, it goes further than that. So
that's so sick.
Kids are getting killed, the whole Bat family gets killed like right in the first couple of panels. So it's a pretty dark comic book, and I kind of wish I didn't read that because I'm like, it was right during the midst of quarantine. So it was already depressing. So I'm like, this is depressing too. So
oh man, yeah, that's tough. Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
And the storyline behind that, is that where the Joker takes up the mantle as Batman?
It is set within one of the DC Universe's multiverses, so it's not the prime DC universe, but an alternate universe where Batman kills the Joker, but he gets infected with the Joker gas in the process. So he slowly turns into the Joker, and so it's like a combination of Batman's smarts and the Joker's like evil, twisted mind combined into one. So it's crazy.
Trip. Oh,
yeah.
And so the Batman starts becoming a bad guy, basically.
Yeah, he is a bad guy. He kills not only, Robin and Batgirl, but he also kills Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, all of them like right at the beginning of the comic. So it's like, wow.
Whoa! Oh man! And then what's the rest of the comic about?
It's about him trying to track down the Prime Batman and trying to take over the Prime DC universe. And it's like the Batman we know, the good Batman, versus this new evil Batman. And it's just a really sick storyline.
Dude,
really awesome.
That's like the coolest thing I've heard of in a really long time out of a comic book. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's so brutal too.
Yeah, so it's called The Batman Who Laughs. It's just a whole saga, so it's like all the issues have been released now. So I got like the trade. I would have to dig through, but yeah, it's called The Batman Who Laughs. Yeah.
I might have to sit my ass down and read that. That sounds like a really good one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And so you very recently finished all of that?
Yeah, I finished all that. Yeah.
Wow, nice. You were talking about you were reading Spiderman as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Is that Miles Morales' Spider-Man?
This is actually the mainline 616, Peter Parker, where Miles is now in the main Marvel universe too, so he's not just in the Ultimate universe.
I see.
But with the Spider-Man comics, again, I'm trying to get caught up on that because like they reboot Spider-Man so much in the comics, just like in the movies.
Right.
Like I'm kind of lost myself, to be honest. Like I'm reading it, but I'm like, okay, where does this fit in and what universe? So it's like,
crazy.
Yeah, it's just craziness. But it's kind of like right now in the comic books, it's back to square one for Spider-Man. So it's basically kind of like the '90s cartoon, that
Okay.
universe, really.
Oh, that's pretty cool. It's so weird how
Mm-hmm.
that's so cyclical. We always go back to the 90s somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That's great though. Oh, how cool. I miss Spider-Man. I know like we got a Spider-Man movie. What? That was like the end of last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough. I need more.
Let me ask you this: what do you think about Spider-Man: Homecoming?
I thought Mysterio should have been a way sicker bad guy, first off, because he's so gnarly. And for him to just be a dude who uses AI and, like, there wasn't even any real hallucinogenics. He's just, like, projecting an artificial world using technology, which is a really cool idea, don't get me wrong. It's just, how is that guy ever going to fight Spider-Man? I also don't think he's dead. I'm quite sure he's still alive, and I'm really hoping he'll come back for a Sinister Six type thing. But it's just weird because I guess it makes a little bit of sense that it's hard for Spider-Man to fight something that he can't really see, but he's got Spidey sense. Like, he should have had a lot easier time figuring out where the real Mysterio was and not getting hit by trains. That didn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I still really enjoyed it. I especially really enjoyed that it took place in Europe. I love Europe. So that was a fun part of it for sure. And he donned like a ninja suit, which is great. You can't complain about that. I just wish Mysterio was a little bit gnarlier of a bad guy. I think he deserves to be gnarlier because it's not like that in the comics, right? He's not using just
Mm-hmm.
technology.
Right. Yeah, he's I agree with your thoughts there, but Mysterio is a little bit more badass in the comics. Like he's not just the trickster with the magic and all that stuff. Like he's a very conniving, like
Mm,
evil villain up there with like Norman Osborn. And
sure.
like one of the things I remember about Mysterio, like recently in the comics, is that he made Peter think that no, it wasn't Peter. It was he appeared in a Daredevil comic book where he made Daredevil Matt Murdock think that his girlfriend Karen had AIDS and she died. And then at
Whoa!
the end, Mysterio pops up and was like, "Yeah, it was all an illusion." But that was just like one of his most evil deeds, I think, for me.
That's not very nice.
Yeah,
That's crazy. What was he even trying to get out of that? Just to bring anger to people?
yeah, he was trying to get at Daredevil for something because all of these heroes live in New York and in the comic books at least. So it's like Spider-Man, Daredevil. They always team up. So I think Spider-Man was taken out of commission and Daredevil was doing something and fighting Mysterio, and that's how they got into conflict. But yeah, when I read that he was like they went there with like the AIDS and STD stuff, I was like, whoa, the comments get deep.
Jeez, seriously, that's crazy. My girlfriend just said something kind of gnarly. What did you say, Celeste? Are you kidding me? Did you hear her?
What happened?
She said Chadwick Boseman, the dude who plays Black Panther, died. He died of
What?
cancer.
He? Whoa.
I gotta look this up too.
Yeah, let me look this up. Whoa. He did look sickly in that picture that I saw of him.
Holy shit.
What?
No way. After a 4-year fight with colon cancer.
Whoa. What in the?
Oh, oh my god.
What? Whoa. That is just.
Oh man, this is
Oh.
hard to hear.
Yeah. Oh man. He. I'm really sorry to hear that. Wow.
Me too, dude. This guy, we needed this guy for a lot longer. He had a lot of big things to do.
Yeah, he was a really, really talented actor. Like they said, he was in, 42 Draft Day. And then, of course, he was Black Panther. So, whoa. Like,
Dude.
whoa. Like, he did look super skinny in that picture that I saw him in a couple of months ago. And I just thought it was for a role or something that he was playing, but
That's so brutal, dude. Is this the dramatic weight loss? I think I'm seeing the picture that you're talking about. Dude, I like, not only was he gonna kind of usher in a new era of the Marvel MCU, but like you said, he's such an amazing actor. I think he was gonna do some really huge, important roles in the future. Ah, dude. And he's
yeah,
very outspoken politically, which we really need more people. Uh, it's just so gnarly to hear.
yeah. I'm really, really sad about that. Yeah, the other guys from the podcast just texted me too, and when they found out, they're like, "What?"
They found out at the exact same time we did.
Yeah, at the exact same time we did. Yeah.
That's crazy. Dude.
Uh,
Oh.
yeah, that is unfortunate. So, I was a huge fan of Chadwick Boseman. So, condolences to everybody involved. Really.
Same here, man. I was a huge fan. I feel like I only just got to know him like 2 years ago, you know? And
Yeah.
this sucks.
Um. It really does. Just because of like we said, he was a good actor, but just when that energy when Black Panther came out, especially when I saw it in theaters, like people who didn't even have an interest in like superheroes were at the movie theater to see that, and it was just all these wide variety of people in the theater, and I just thought it was beautiful. I thought that was a nice coming together moment for not just movies, but just as people. So
Exactly. I couldn't have said that better myself. Yeah, man, he really brought people together. I think that was his real life superpower, you know?
hmm yeah, definitely will be missed. So
Yeah, big time. Oh, man. Brutal.
yeah.
It's important that we find that out. Very
Yeah,
sad.
I mean, it's still, still relates to what we were talking about too. So, and it kind of helps whoever watches this, they'll be able to get the news. Well, they'll probably heard about it by the time this
Right.
is released still, but they got our reactions because we just found out, like, as we were talking about this.
Yeah. That's crazy to capture that. We're both looking on the internet to try and find out if it's true.
Yeah,
Uh, oh, dude.
and
Oh. What are they gonna do for Black Panther 2?
yeah, I was just gonna bring that up too. I mean, at the moment, it's not important, but going forward for Marvel, for Marvel's sake, after everything kind of goes back to normal, it's going to be like, whoa, are they going to recast for Black Panther, too? Because he was going to play like you mentioned, him and Spiderman were going to be like the, I guess, mainstays, and this and Captain Marvel too were kind of like the main ones to take over from Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans too. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a blow, not just to the world and the real world, but to our entertainment Marvel fandom too. That's a huge blow. So
Totally. Two worlds getting
yeah,
hit super hard at once.
yeah,
That's pretty gnarly.
hmm. Yeah. Where does Marvel go from here? He was because they did release their Phase 4 um, timetable, and I know Black Panther 2 is up there, and I think they were talking about doing something else with Black Panther 2 for Disney Plus, but
Oh,
That would have been really, really cool. But
that would have been so sick. Yeah. I
yeah,
wanted to know so much more about everything to do with Black Panther. He had his own little world, kind of. He was just coming out of that world, and I don't know that much about Black Panther from the comics, but I've got to imagine he had his own villains inside Wakanda and things before he ever came out to the bigger Marvel world, and that would have been so sick to explore. And then everything that you were just saying, I would say is even more important. He was going to become one of the sort of like showrunners of Marvel, and I'm like so excited about the direction that Marvel's taking, becoming more inclusive. It's not just like a bunch of white dudes, you know. It's like there's
yeah,
women and there's black people and Asian people and all the people are finally coming in to Marvel. But Chadwick was like the guy who introduced that, and now
yeah.
he's gone.
And it was a very timely introduction too. They introduced him in 2016 in the movies at least, and Stan Lee created him during, I want to say right around the time he created the X-Men too, like during the civil rights in the 60s. And Stan Lee thought it was important to have a African American superhero in his comics, and he really fought for that. So I always respected Stan Lee for even back then kind of being radical and pushing for inclusivity and racial justice. So as a comic book nerd, I always appreciated that. Yeah, that is a bummer though. That is,
Super big bummer.
yeah. During the civil rights in the 60s, so it was Black Panther, and then the X-Men are an allegory for racism and stuff too.
I remember reading about that years ago.
Yeah,
And Black Panthers, that's a little more obvious.
yeah. And Black Panther, a lot of people joke with, he's sort of like, he's basically Marvel's equivalent to Batman, really, because he shares similar attributes. Like he's smart, he has technology, wealth, and all that stuff. So yeah.
Right. Would you say Black Panther or Iron Man is closer to Batman? And why?
I would say that's a tough one because both are very close to Batman in terms of style and the way that they fight crime. So, I would have to say
their use of technology for sure. I'd say Iron Man's style a little
is a
different.
little bit more. Yeah, I think yeah, that is a good question though. I think there was a crossover at one point with Marvel and DC where somebody did meet Iron Man. No. That was Batman crossed over to Marvel at one point. And the Joker met Spiderman or something like that.
I know Superman fought Venom at least one time. I think they've tried to do a few crossovers like that. And I think, like Superman obviously cleans the floor with anybody he comes into contact with, apparently except Batman. But apparently because Venom was so popular in the 90s, Venom beat Superman. Doesn't even make sense. There's no possible combination that has Venom beating Superman. He's not smart enough to figure out kryptonite, I don't think.
Yeah. Funny you should mention that. I think right when I came to San Diego Comic Con 2018, I was waiting to get into the Venom panel, and somebody had that same conversation. They were like, Superman and Venom fought, and I was like, what? So I had never heard of that until they told me about it, and I was like, yeah, there's no way Venom could ever beat Superman, but the 90s and Venom's popularity. So
yeah, exactly that. I know I had a crap load of Venom comics in the 90s.
Yeah.
He was such a sick bad guy. I was really into Carnage too, but Carnage, looking back on it, the dude just like, he didn't have that much personality. He's just a murder machine. And that's like about it. Venom had so much personality. He's such an entertaining villain. And half the time he's on the good guy's side, like trying to stop his brethren, like Carnage. I
Hmm.
always thought that was super cool.
Yeah. Oh, let me ask you this then, because I never got to officially ask you. What did you think about the Venom movie with Tom Hardy?
Ah, that is a great question. Let's see here. First off, I really liked it. I am so glad they finally brought Venom to the big screen. He's always been my favorite villain. Um, and I've learned a lot more about other villains, I think, since the 90s when I was just obsessed with Venom, but no one's going to top, your childhood favorites. Um, but there were a few parts of the movie that were very head scratchy. In particular, what pops out the most is the whole motorcycle chase with the drones. That made zero sense. None of that made any sense. And then I think a lot of the fight scene between Venom and the other symbiote, I can't remember his name right now. Do you remember his name?
In the movie, I believe it was right was the other
Right.
Venom,
What's that guy's
not
name?
the other symbiote. I mean,
Yeah. Um, that fight, I don't know. Parts of it were really good and parts of it were not so good. And it lasted a really long time, I recall. And I don't know any fight that lasts, 20, 30 minutes. uh,
yeah.
they probably could have made it a little bit more high stakes and quicker, and it would have been great. I really like how they ended it, though. That was cool. Like, forcing him into the rocket and then having it blow up. That's pretty ingenious. That was great. But I think they did themselves a big disservice killing all those bad guys in one movie, introducing and killing them all. Because I know they have a long history with Marvel at this point. Because how are you gonna? The symbiotes are like some of the coolest bad guys. How are you gonna get rid of those dudes? And at least I want to say I think Scream has a lot of her own comics, or she shows up in a lot of comics that Venom doesn't necessarily. For whatever reason, she became really popular. The one with the long hair.
Hmm. Yeah, she does have a lot of comics. Funnily enough, I didn't really know about her until I went to Universal theme parks and rode the Spider-Man ride. And I was
Oh,
like, who's this symbiote, female symbiote? And then I went and read the comics after. But I was
oh,
introduced to her through the theme park ride. So
that's
funny story.
cool. So they did, they did their job right then, introducing
Yeah.
people to sick characters. I haven't been on that ride. I need to go check that out.
I yeah, it's I don't think they have it at the Universal in LA. I've been there twice.
Okay,
I
that's
think
probably
it's
why.
only in Florida, Orlando, Florida. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think that's why. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. I need to go to Florida at some point. I would really like to see Disney World. I'd like to see that Universal Studios and just Florida.
yeah. Florida's really. I wouldn't come during the summer just because that Florida heat is something else.
Hmm.
Going through, I've been to Disney World 3 times. The most recent time was 2017,
Okay.
and man, it was fun. But like, I went like in June, and I almost died from just the
Oh no. Oh,
just
that
the
sounds
heat.
brutal.
Like it really is like 90 degrees in Florida. It feels like 112. So
Oh, dude, that's so crazy.
yeah,
Wow. It's that humidity that really makes it painful, because it truly is like hot enough to kill you, and then on top of it, like 90% humidity or more. Woohoo! Oh, Lord. I complain
yeah,
about our weather here in San Diego. In the month of August, in particular, is when it gets the hottest. And this year wasn't so bad. I don't think we broke 100 this year, but every other year for the last at least 5 years, but probably more, we've had a whole week of over 100 degrees, but it's really dry heat. And I complain about it because it's really hot, like
yeah,
it definitely could kill you if you stay in it for too long. And you step outside and it just sucks the moisture right out of your body, and you immediately feel all crinkled and wrinkly and ashy and weird stuff. But I think the humid heat is way worse.
yeah.
You feel suffocated.
Absolutely. It's like that here in Virginia too, where Virginia Beach, where we've had like a heat wave for the past all of July was like in the hundreds, so it was like unbearably hot here. But it's starting to cool down now. Like this week, we've been in the 80s, so it's been nice beach weather. We've had a lot of tourists here,
That's
so
nice.
yeah,
That's cool. I've never thought about Virginia and thought the beach.
yeah,
You got a big
Virginia
one.
Beach. Yeah, Virginia Beach is a pretty big tourist area. We had a lot of music festivals here,
Mm,
and a lot of celebrities are surprisingly from here. The CW, The Flash, Grant Gustafson, he's actually from where I live in Virginia Beach, and my friend actually works with his father at a university, so that's pretty
no
cool.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
Um,
cool. What a connection there.
yeah. Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk, he is actually originally from here.
No
Um,
way.
there's a couple of actors and musicians that are around here, so it's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Yeah, I can't wait to come and visit at some point, hit up some of the cons around there with you and the other dudes from the Inspired Geeks podcast. That's going to be so much fun when the pandemic is over and we can actually hang out.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely gonna be hitting up some cons. I'll definitely be heading back to San Diego too. So
Yeah,
yeah, you guys will be seeing me.
that's cool. Have you thought about WonderCon at all? Do you think you'll come for
Also,
that?
yeah, WonderCon as well. Yeah.
Sweet. I'm wondering if 2021 will happen because I think we'll still be in the pandemic. It usually happens in like, I want to say March or April. And there's a real good chance maybe we'll have a vaccine, but getting it to all 350 million Americans, that's going to be an incredible infrastructure challenge. And we're not guaranteed to be the first ones to get a vaccine. Maybe it'll be China. They have
Yeah.
just as many, I think, potential vaccines running right now as we do, maybe even more.
Yeah, I think so. I'm hopeful, but I wouldn't be like a lot of people. I'm not gonna be the first one to get a vaccine. Like I'm
Right.
gonna do some research before I say or agree to it. But I
Definitely.
think I think we can have some cons. Like I went to GalaxyCon in Richmond, Virginia, right before the pandemic really started to become like a really big problem here in the U.S.
Okay.
And the
Was that
way
in
that they
March?
handled it, yeah, back in March, yeah, they handled it by they started to space us all out, and like when you met the celebrities, there was no real handshake. It was more like a fist bump or something like that. So
That's
it
still
could
pretty
it
cool.
could work, yeah. And they had hand sanitizers out, and like as long as it's spaced out and like nobody's on top of each other, I think we can have reasonable cons. Not now San Diego, that's a little bit different because it's so huge. So
That one would not work. That is
yeah,
like,
well,
it's almost like a zombie apocalypse. You're just in this
yeah,
sea of people. You don't even get to determine which direction you're going.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know because I'm like I got lost in the convention center when I went. I was like, where am I going? Which line is this? So yeah,
Yeah, I
um,
I get lost in that sea every single year.
yeah, yeah.
Get
But it
turned
was
around.
just really, really cool. Like just the environments and panels that I went to. I don't think I told you I went to three panels, but the most memorable one was for what was that Marvel show? I don't think it's on the air anymore. Called uh, Cloak and Dagger. That was the one that I went
Oh,
to.
okay. I've heard of that.
And I like was standing right next to the two stars of the show, but I didn't realize it when I was on the convention floor. And I'm like, what?
That's so
What?
cool.
Yeah, like I was talking to them everything, like 'cause I was flipping through some comics, and then I go to the panel, and I'm like, I know that dude and that girl. They were like, here are the stars, and I'm like, come on.
No way. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I think the coolest. I've never gotten that close. I don't think to celebrities, or maybe I have, and I just didn't know that they were celebrities. I'd say that's
hmm
more possible. There was one year where the dude from Breaking Bad. I'm trying to remember his name right now. I'm so bad at names.
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston. He was wearing a mask of himself from Breaking Bad, running around the Comic-Con one year. And nobody found out about it until the second to the last day on Saturday. But he'd been running around for like the whole con. And this was, I think, the year that Breaking Bad ended. And so there's a small chance I was next to him at some point because there were a lot of people wearing that mask. It was
Yeah.
crazy. But I have to say, that's the most ingenious thing that I've ever heard of for a celebrity to do. If you're that big a celebrity and you're just going to be mauled almost to death if you show your face in something like Comic-Con, wearing a mask of yourself. Oh, God, it's it's just so cush. I love it. That's so great.
That is smart. Like I read an article too that what was the second Spider-Man? Not Toby McGuire, but the dude that yeah, he was there at San Diego Comic-Con dressed as Spider-Man and then revealed himself at a panel like he was asking the question to the director and then took off his mask and everyone was like, "Oh, it's him."
Yes, I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. He's good.
Yeah, I actually liked him. I know I've gotten to some arguments, especially with people online and even some of the guys on the podcast. Like we
Oh yeah.
actually liked him a little bit better than I liked Tobey Maguire. Like
Okay.
I
think
like
that's
Tobey
fair.
Maguire, yeah, but I just feel like Tobey Maguire was a good Peter Parker, but not so great Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A little chunky,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah, and like he lacked that sense of humor that Spider-Man should have. So
Oh, that's a really good point. I fully agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say he was a great introduction to what Marvel could do. I think between those Spider-Man movies and obviously the X-Men movies that came just before them, like if that hadn't happened, I don't know that Marvel, the MCU could have happened. That we really needed those things to happen. What it was is they had a really famous actor like Tobey Maguire and some of the famous actors like Ian McKellen on X-Men. Those we needed some super famous actor to be a superhero before we could have Robert Downey Jr. be Iron Man. I mean, I know he was pretty famous at one point, but then he had like that spiral out, and then he became Iron Man, and he's one of the biggest names ever. Period. You know, and I think that's Tobey Maguire's claim to fame is like we needed a Tobey Maguire to be Spider-Man, but now that he has been, it's great to have someone like Andrew Garfield who was pretty darn funny. I recall really enjoying that version of Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's sense of humor. I think the reason why he didn't get a third movie is because he said bad things about China, and China was some of the biggest contributors to the money behind his versions of the movies. So that's pretty gnarly. I didn't even think that could happen.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
have to say, out of the three Spider-Mans we've gotten, at least since the 2000s, I don't know. I know there were some, like way back in the day, but Tom Holland is my boy. That guy is so
I
awesome.
agree.
He's so cool. He's just like such a nice seeming guy. And the dude can do backflips all day. He's crazy, and he has an excellent sense of humor, and he has that perfect relationship with Robert Downey Jr. up until, well, even in the newest one, without Robert Downey Jr., still having that like almost idealistic, like seeing him as the superhero and himself as just some guy almost, even though he is like the coolest superhero in my opinion. I really like that about it, and it's not something that any of the movies had ever explored before. And I think that it's a really important part of Peter Parker and Spider-Man in the comics, because he's usually a teenager in the comics, at least the Peter Parker, well, no, also the Miles Morales version, and they're like, that's the reason why Spider-Man was so relatable and so easy to like when I was growing up, at least, is that like this dude had real life problems. He had superhero problems and real life problems. Captain America never had any real life problems, other than his freaking love interest died because he was frozen in ice for 70 years. I don't know if that counts as a real life problem, but Spider-Man was constantly having real life problems and dealing with bullies and dating and like hormones and all kinds of weird stuff, and it was just so dang relatable. And And then he's also out there trying to save the world at the same time. We talked about this on the podcast a little bit. Or no, just before the podcast. It was just me and you talking.
Yeah.
He's my favorite. He's the coolest.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with your points too. Like Spider-Man was the first superhero that I just fell in love with too, just because of how relatable he was. Like everybody experiences the problems that he had, and you could just relate to that so easily. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. Who's your favorite superhero now? That's a good question.
Who's my favorite superhero now? It's probably still Spider-Man, actually.
That's epic. I am with you there. He's never gonna not be my favorite. He's always been my boy. He always will be.
Yeah. I just can't I can't think of another hero that like I related to so much. Like every single issue is like whatever issue he had, I'm like, I've been there. So it's like, okay, I can relate to this. So yeah.
So true, dude. Exactly that.
Like, I've talked to people like, well, it's Batman, but I'm like, how relatable is he? I mean, sure, he's a regular dude, but he's rich and he's highly trained in martial arts. How many people that are like that, really?
Yeah. How many super rich people like put the time into learning martial arts, right? That's extremely rare.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And
or Superman.
Oh yeah. Superman is an alien. Like, how do you relate to that?
Yeah.
I guess some Midwesterners might like click with his background growing up on a farm and stuff, but even that's not super relatable because like the kinds of problems he would get into is accidentally lifting a trailer, like, oh no, that guy wasn't supposed to see me lift a trailer, or oops, I figured out I have laser eyes. That's not, there's nothing to relate to there.
Yeah, that is true. Well, they did try to make him a little bit relatable with the early 2000s Smallville show, which I've watched.
Yeah. I really feel bad that I missed that because I heard such great things about Smallville.
Yeah, it really was one of the early superhero television shows. Like, I think it doesn't get enough credit for like where we are now with like superhero shows. I mean, it was on for 10 years, and I will admit, like, some of the seasons sucked. Like the later seasons, it dragged on and got weird. It just went far left. Like, this isn't even like Superman canon. Like, seems like fan fiction stuff. Like, that's how bad it got. But the last season, I will say, the last episode is just like one of those stand up and clap and cheer moments. Like, he puts on a Superman suit and it's like, okay, this is how he fits into canon now. So it's really cool.
Oh, okay. So it's like, it's his life before he became Superman? Is that what it's mostly about?
Right. Yeah, basically is him as a teenager learning about his powers, living on the farm with the Kents, his relationship with Lex Luthor, and fighting different villains each episode. None of them were like comic book villains, but villains nonetheless. But
this is an interesting question. If they introduced new villains in Smallville, did any of those villains end up making it into the comics because they were introduced in Smallville? I never really read DC nearly as much as Marvel, so I'm out of the loop.
There was a Smallville comic that they created where it's not in the main DC universe, but it's like in a multiverse universe. So yeah, some of the characters on the show made it to the comic books that way, but
that's cool.
None of them went into like the mainline DC universe now.
So do you think that DC sort of plays that as Smallville, the TV show, was an alternate universe? This is not the mainline Superman's upbringing.
Yeah, it's more of like, it's an alternate take on it. So depending on your perspective of Superman, it could be completely canon or it could be tossed out. So they kind of give you the option.
Oh, that's cool.
But and then another fun fact is I actually met Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum, who played Clark and Lex Luthor on the show, this year at GalaxyCon, right before coronavirus.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, they were there shaking hands. They didn't care about Corona. It wasn't that serious to them. I'm like, now they probably take it serious,
Yeah,
but,
right.
but even there, yeah.
That's really cool, though. Oh man, especially because you actually watched the show growing up, and then you got to meet Superman and Lex Luthor together. That's badass.
Yeah. Yeah, he's even in real life, he still acts like Superman, so it's really cool. And
Really?
like, yeah, and I'm 6'2", a pretty tall, big guy, but I'm standing there looking up to him like he's still this big muscular. So it's like, whoa, yeah, because he's
Very
about
funny, man.
10 years older than me. I'm 32, and he's like 43 or something like that.
Okay. And he's like
Yeah,
a super tall dude. I mean, if you're 6'2" and you're looking up at him, he's got to be at
yeah,
least 6'4".
yeah. He's about 6'4", yeah, maybe 6'5".
That's a huge dude. Jeez.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about your podcast? Maybe mention some of the episodes that we should watch, because I've only seen like your most recent 3 or 4. And if there were some good episodes before that, I definitely need to know.
So the podcast is basically it was an idea that I had where I'm doing what I'm doing now, talking to you about comics and video games and things that I'm passionate about. So I've been doing it for about a year. We didn't upload as much as I would have liked just because of life and work, and I was in school at the time. But basically, I think the main episodes I think you listened to were the one we did with you about Comic Con. We also talked about the different gaming systems. We've also talked about the different movie reviews from last year. So we did reviews about Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Avengers Endgame. We talked about all that stuff. So it's really cool if if any listeners want to go back and listen to the podcast, that would be appreciated. But we're really trying to move forward into doing more podcasts. We'll also be doing, YouTubes where you'll see our faces and we'll add footage in to kind of keep things fresh. I'm also thinking about doing a Twitch stream just so I can start playing with listeners if they want to get to know us a little bit better. So yeah, and I'll, link it, or we can link it so you guys can find it on, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, and a whole bunch of other places. And like you asked me before on social media, the 616 is actually a reference to Marvel's main universe.
I thought that was so cool. It
Yeah,
was great. When I finally figured it out, I was like, hold up. I think I know what this means.
yeah.
So great. Nice. Yeah, definitely go and check that out, you guys, if you haven't. I did a little super short YouTube video about it when I was on the podcast. It was really fun to be on the podcast. We talked about a whole lot of stuff, just like this, except with 4 of us, and it was really, really great. Even got to talk about Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which was very cool. And yeah, I just can't say enough good things. And it's a really, really great podcast. And so your YouTube channel, how's that different? Is it different?
It's not really different. It's more of a companion to the podcast, I would say. So
Okay.
it'll be like episodes, but you'll actually see myself, Lily, John, and whoever, the guests that we have on the podcast, sort of like kind of like what we're doing, but you'll just physically see our faces, and I'll add in, like, for example, if I'm reviewing a movie, I'll add the actual footage from a trailer so you can see what I'm talking about. That's
cool.
the method. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Cool. I need to go and watch more of those. I watched one where I think you were playing video games on it.
Yeah, I was reviewing probably Resident Evil 3 right during quarantine.
Nice.
And it was just fun too.
I watched your Black Lives Matter podcast, and I really enjoyed that one. I don't know if I got to talk about it when I was on your podcast, but getting to hear the perspective from you guys, because I'm a white dude, so like people aren't racist to me, and my mom is from Alabama, so I've gone to Alabama, and when I'm there, it's like I'm a white dude, and people treat me like a white dude, and so I don't even really get to see it. It's a weird thing. It's so weird. It's this weird disconnect. But then hearing on your podcast about, you mentioned at one point, like just thinking, what if I had been George Floyd? I mean, when that happened, like, dude, that sent such visceral feelings to me. And everybody talking about, I can't remember who it was, but one of the other dudes talked about how like he had a pretty bad day and had to like call his dad up at work one time right after all this stuff started. Like, this is stuff that people like me need to hear because we care and we just don't get the opportunity to see it, you know? And I think you guys also mentioned on the podcast that like the white allies need to know how it really is and stuff. And I fully agree. We do. We are not educated about this stuff nearly enough. That podcast made me want to go to the museum that you guys were talking about. I think that would be quite the experience going there. And I would love to go there with you guys. I know it's in, I think, DC. So I don't know if that's a possibility. But man, that would be so epic to go with you guys when I visit. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I think that would be amazing. But yeah, we really do need to hear about this, and it's not talked about nearly enough. I'm not trying to get super political on my YouTube channel or anything, but I just, how can you not right now? This is the real world. And people like me need to know what's going on if we're not the brunt of it.
Right. I appreciate you saying that. I couldn't, that means a lot. But yeah, like I don't like to get too political either, but like, and we're like a nerd podcast, but we felt like we needed to kind of say something because it was just right during the midst of when everything was happening. And I think it still kind of ties into the fact that for me, I was always a person who was drawn to superheroes because they brought out the best in people. So that's why I always loved the characters like Spiderman and Superman and all these characters, because really their race really didn't have to do anything to do with the characters and the people that they were. So I could be Spider-Man, I could be Superman, I could see myself in those characters. So that's kind of why I loved just the art form of, comics and pop culture and nerd culture in general, and just the community as a whole. Cosplayers and people at conventions, like, they really don't care about, your skin. At least the ones that I've met and been to, nobody cares about, your skin color, where you're from. Like, if you're a fan of comics, you're a friend or you're an ally. So that's what I just love about, the community. And, I think, even though we talk about lighthearted stuff, I think the biggest thing, I guess, that I'm trying to say is that we can be superheroes in real life just by, listening to people and show compassion and be open-minded to people who, don't look like you, don't think like you, don't share the same, beliefs or whatever those may be. We can always just be, friendly and kind to each other, make the world a better place.
That's so sick, dude. I love how you said that. We can all be superheroes. Just be good to one another. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. I think that's the perfect way to leave off with this. It was just the best note it could possibly end on.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and be more of a superhero now that you said that. I'm going to go out there and be nice to people that are different than me. Oh, man, this has been great. It's been wonderful catching up with you. I really enjoyed talking to you just in general. But it's super cool to have you on the YouTube channel. And I hope to have all three of you guys from the Inspired Geeks Podcast on next month or October. We were talking about maybe doing a Halloween themed one. That would be cool if we were all wearing costumes. That would be great. So we'll definitely set that up. And thank you so much for coming on my channel. This is going to be one heck of an episode.
Thanks for having me on, though, man. This is cool.
Definitely, man. Thank you for coming on.
I was just going to say, I am, and I always do this on my podcast too, I'm always looking for people. So no matter where you're located, if you guys, and the same for you, if anybody wants to be a part of the podcast, I can always use the help. Or if you want to be a guest or a co-host, we're hiring is what I'm trying to say. So.
I got you. Okay. And yeah, anytime you want me on, dude, I am there for sure. I enjoyed that so much, and it's just a great experience in general. And also, it helps me get better at talking, in front of maybe not a camera, but on the microphone. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending time with us. This, again, was Will from the Inspired Geeks Podcast. Check out his podcast in the description below. Thank you very much, Will, for being on. This was a joy. And we'll catch you all later. Bye.
All right, bye.